Alright, welcome to another tutorial for USOR Games. This will be the third tutorial in our series of how to play the game. In the last tutorial, we covered the action time calendar, reaction rolls, taking turns in combat, and how to strike opponents. But in order to make sure that none of these videos are too long, I didn't want to get into stuff like how to damage opponents. That's going to be our focus of the tutorial for today, and I just wanted to briefly go over how damage works in the game first, and then you'll get to see it in action in just a moment. So in the game there are hit points in a certain sense. Don't really call them hit points, but the game does use a form of hit points. Most role-playing games that have hit points usually, like, as you gain levels, you increase the number of hit points you have. As you gain experience, you increase your hit points. As you get bigger monsters, the hit points increase. That is not the case in this game. Every humanoid creature, that is every creature that has a head and a torso and 2 legs and 2 arms, no matter what their size is, no matter what their race is, no matter what their species is, all that stuff, no matter how strong they are, how tall they are, how skinny they are, they could be a 2-inch little creature, or they could be a 3,000-foot tall giant. They will always have the same number of hit points. And like I said, that's for a humanoid form. So if you're blob-shaped or a centaur or something like that, then the numbers will be a little different. But my point is that size does not increase your hit points. Every humanoid in the game has 6 hit points on their left arm, 6 hit points on their right arm, 8 on their left leg, 8 on their right leg, 4 on their head, and 10 on their chest. So if your left arm takes 6 damage in total, the left arm is destroyed. If your right arm takes 6 damage in total, your right arm is destroyed, so on and so forth, right down the line. So if a sword is swung at your left arm, hits it and does 6 damage, it basically chops your left arm off. Or if a hammer smashes it, it basically just turns your left arm into goo. Now, if your left arm already had 4 hits and it takes 2 more from a sword slice, it probably doesn't chop the arm off, but it essentially kills the arm, and the arm is just kind of dead hanging there. I know it's kind of morbid, but that just kind of helps explain the system and how that works. If your left arm, right arm, left leg, or right leg are killed, that is not considered fatal. You can still, obviously, because people can obviously still live if they've had an arm, if they're missing an arm. So the same goes in this game. Unfortunately, though, if you take maximum damage to your head, you're dead. And if you take maximum damage to your chest, you're dead. So these are the 2 fatal points. There's another way you can die, however. If you take, in total, 20 hits from each of these 6 different body parts, if the combined damage they receive is 20, then you are dead as well. So that's another way to die. And it's also important to note that any given limb can't take more than their max number of damage. So a left arm can't take more than 6. It can't take 8 hits, for instance. 6 is the max. If someone just keeps hitting it, you're just hitting a dead arm. And it's also important to note, too, that stun plays a part. If you get up to 20 stun points, then you are essentially knocked out. So there's another factor in this as well, in the sense that as you start to take more damage, certain stats start to decrease. Now, I'll use the skeleton as an example of that right now, because that illustrates it well with the monsters. So this is the skeleton that we were fighting in our example of a battle in the previous video. You can see here we have all of his stats. He's got the physical stats, mental stats, and the combat stats and whatnot. Notice that with the physical stats, the combat stats, and his striking ability, they have there's different colors associated here. Now, The skeleton's strength when he's completely healthy is 22, right? But if he takes enough damage, he goes into 80% of his stats, so his strength goes down to 18. This is temporary. Once his hit points go back up, then he goes back to current. But at 80%, his strength goes to 18. At 60%, it goes to 13, 49, 20, and 4, so on and so forth. Same with strike, same with all these different stats here. How do you determine what level he's currently at? Well, the total number of hits that he takes, that's what determines it, whether it's physical damage or stun. So if he takes, actually I take that back, skeletons can't be stunned because they are undead. They have the trait of undead, and they are stun immune. They have that trait, so they don't have any stun, but humans regularly do have 20 stun. If the skeleton takes up to 3 hits, he's fine. He's still in the blue. But notice that when he has 4 to 6 hits taken, that's 4 to 6 in total for all 6 of these different ones, not for each. But if he has 6 damage in total, then his stats go down to the green. If he has 7 to 9, it goes down to yellow, 10 to 12 to orange, and 13 to 20 is red. Obviously, if he gets 20, he's got his max damage, and he is dead. So that's how damage works in terms of how, maximum damage and how many hits you can take and how it affects you. Let's get into the actual combat right now to show you how damage is done. So what we have here is we have our character Steve, who you probably remember from the last video. And Steve is a warrior type guy, and we're going to use his sword. So we need to use his sword skill right here, which is 23, you can see, which is pretty good for a low-level character. And we're going to use it to strike our opponent. Now, because his focus is combat, he's a fighter type guy, he purchased the ability, the sword ability, Critical Strike. And I'm sure those of you who have played a lot of these games before, you're familiar with the concept of Critical Strike. In this game, the higher the Nost that you get when you make a strike, the more bonus damage you get to have with that hit. So it's a great way to deal a lot of damage to an opponent. And our current rating is 5, and that will give us a certain amount of bonus damage depending on what kind of Nost we enter. Now notice that I can't enter anything in here right now. This is grayed out. And if you scroll down here, I can't enter hits in. Those are grayed out too. That's because we're viewing the character sheet. This is just in view mode. And what I recommend to players when you're actually playing the game, I would open it in edit mode. So just click edit, and it'll pop up just like you did when you first created the character. And you'll be able to modify all those stats. So we have, oops, that's the one I wanted right there, weapon ability. So we have the ability to put in Nost right there for Critical Strike. And we have the ability to put in hits if we get any. So I would recommend that. And since when you have this in edit mode like this, you can't really go back to the other screen. So I'd recommend having a duplicate copy of the website open. So here I've got a duplicate copy, and here's our game session here, Dungeon 1, I just called it, so you can communicate with the other players and still have your character sheet open. So let's go ahead and get started. So his sword skill is 23. Let's look that up on the event chart. You can see that 23 is 2d6 and 1d8, so let's go ahead and roll that. Roll 2d6 plus 1d8. All right, we got 3 successes. Nice. That means we are probably going to hit this skeleton. Let's take a look at the skeleton. Skeleton has a dodge of 11. Oh man, that skeleton's probably not even going to have a chance. So we got 3 successes. So let's take a look and see what 11 has. Now 11 has 1d6 and 1d8. That's 2 dice. So the maximum number of successes he could get is 2. We're hoping it's going to be even lower than that though, because we want to be able to use that the Critical Strike ability. So let's try rolling, and he got 2 successes. Okay. So that means that we got 3, He got 2. That means we only had 1 Nost. So what is Nost, you might ask? Well, Nost stands for number of successes over target, and that is used to determine a lot of abilities in the game, including, in this case, Critical Strike. So Critical Strike is only effective when you have a Nost of 2 to 5, or 2 or higher, I should say. Our Nost was 1, so that wasn't enough. A Nost of 1 generally doesn't trigger any special effects, but Nosts of 2 or higher often does. So you'll notice, though, that as this character progresses, as you start spending more and more character points on his sword skill, the chances that he'll hit a target becomes much more likely, and the chances that he'll have a higher Nost becomes much more likely as well. And that allows him to do his Critical Strike much more often. So again, because we got 3 successes and the skeleton got 2, 3 minus 2 is 1, the Nost, or number of successes over target, is only 1. Because of that, we cannot do the Critical Strike. So let's just do a regular damage roll. So we know we hit him. Now we have to determine if the hit actually did damage. Quite simple, really. We just got to look up our sword. Just downsizing some of these here right now. Where's our sword? Here we go, long sword. Okay, with all the current adjustments, it's factoring all this other stuff in, bonus damage, base damage, blah, 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 blah. There's our current damage right there of 75. If we had Critical Strike, it would automatically apply the bonus to it. Right now, it is just simply 75. So let's look up 75 on the chart. And 75 is 78. That's quite a bit. That's pretty awesome. USOR roll 78. Let's hope we get a lot of successes. He's striking for his chest. We had 1, 2, 3, looks like 5. 5 successes. So there's potential of 5 damage we could do to this target. Let's take a look at what the skeleton has. The skeleton has, you roll defense. So the skeleton has defense of 51. So skeleton's got a chance, I think. Let's take a look at the event chart. 51, 3d12, 1d20. So we know that the skeleton's going to take at least 1 hit because he's only rolling 4 dice. So the maximum number of successes he could get is 4. But let's see just how much damage he does take. USOR roll, what was that again? I think it was 3d12, 1d20, yes. Okay, we have 1 success, 2 successes. Okay, 2 successes. So the skeleton rolled a defense roll of 2 successes, and we rolled an attack roll of 5 successes. So 5 minus 2 is 3. The skeleton takes 3 damage, and I declared that I hit him on the chest. So then he would then have 3 damage here currently on his chest. Remember, if he takes 10 on the chest, he's dead. And his damage in total is 3, so he's still in the blue. And his stats are all still at 100%. So let's say, just fast forward, let's just say that the skeleton struck at Steve and missed Steve. And let's say that it's Steve's turn to attack again. And we'll have him roll to strike again. And just for the sake of argument, let's say that when he rolled to strike, because in that roll to strike, he got, I think it was in the first example, he got 3 successes on his roll to strike. Up here, 1, 2, 3. Let's say that the skeleton only got 1 success. So if Steve in that last attack got 3 successes, and if the skeleton, and remember the skeleton got 2, but let's just say he got 1 success as opposed to 2, then that means Steve's Nost is 2. 3 minus 1 is 2. So that means his Critical Strike can apply. So let's go ahead and apply the Critical Strike. Apologize if there's any background noise. I think that's just my neighbors on a motorcycle. All right, where are we at here? Armor, skills, magic items, weapon abilities. Here we go. Okay, let's punch in the Nost. Oh, before we do that, let's see what the sword attack does. So we have a long sword here, and current damage of 75. So let's go ahead and Boy, I'm all over the place today. Where is it? Here it is. Let's go ahead and put the Nost in of 2. Okay, because we got 2 for Nost. So that adds a 15 damage bonus. See how that number changed right there? Now if you scroll down to the weapon now does 90 for this attack. That's pretty cool. So let's look at 90 on the chart. So now we do 7d8 plus 1d10. So that's cool. We get an extra die in there. So USOR roll 7d8 plus 1d10. And we get 1, 2, 3, 4 successes. Funny, even when we get the critical strike, we actually do less. We have less successes than when we didn't do the critical strike, but that's just the luck of the roll. We had a bad roll there. So 1, 2, 3, 4 successes. Skeleton rolls the defense, which is 51. 3d12 plus 1d20. And we get 2 successes. So we had 4 here, and we had 2 here. So that means that the skeleton takes 2 more damage to the chest. And as we said, I think he got hit for 3 before. So he now has 3 plus 2. He has 5 hits on the chest. He can take 5 hits more before he's dead. And now he is in the green, so that when the game master is rolling for the skeleton, he or she needs to use the green column here. Okay, and that's basically it for how damage is dealt. And like I said, when you take those max hits, then you're dead. Other important things to note about damage and hitting: size level affects damage, and it affects strike. So notice that size level for the skeleton is 0. 0 is kind of our default size. 0 means you are human-sized. But you could be fighting a cockroach. I don't know what size level that is off the top of my head. There's a size chart on our website for you to reference, but cockroach is probably like size level -6 or something like that, whereas like a giant would be size level 4. Every object, every creature in the game has a size level. And like I said, that modifies striking chances and it modifies damage dealt. So if you're fighting a larger opponent, in other words, an opponent that has a size level bigger than you, it's going to make it easier to hit him, isn't it? Because it's very easy to hit a giant object. It's very hard to hit a small object. But you're also going to do less damage because bigger objects can take more damage overall. And like I said, the number of hit points you have doesn't depend on your size level, but the damage you take is affected by it. So for every size level difference between the attacker and defender, there is a modification of 1 point of strike and 5 points of damage. So if the attacker is smaller than the opponent, then he gets +1 to strike against that opponent for every level of size difference. So if I'm size level 0 and I am attacking a size level 5 opponent, I get +5 to my strike roll because I'm fighting a larger opponent. Makes it much easier to hit him or her. Unfortunately though, when I'm rolling for damage, if I do actually happen to hit the opponent, I have to decrease my damage or increase his defense. The game master can do either way. I usually increase defense. I get to increase the opponent's defense by 25. Why? Because, well, there's a 5 size level difference, right? The opponent, the attacker has size level 0, and the defender has size level 5. So that's a difference of 5. 5 times 5 is 25. So that's how much you increase the defense of the creature by. So that's just a quick way of adjusting for attacking for larger opponents. Conversely, let's say that there is a size level 0 character attacking a size level -2 character. Well, smaller objects are harder to hit, obviously. So our attacker would have a -2 to strike, since there's a 2 size level difference below him. But he also would do increased damage. So the increased damage would be 10, because there's a 2 size level difference. 2 times 5 is 10. And you do increased damage of 10. So that's about it for damage and killing opponents and whatnot. I think that's good enough to end the video for now, but I hope you join me for some other videos. Hopefully I'll post some more on how to play the game, get into some more advanced details of the game, but these past 3 videos, that's covering about 90% of the rules that you need to play the game. We try to use very basic and simple universal rules, and again, these rules will apply for any game genre, any setting. So hence the name Universal Set of Rules. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. And of course, until then, happy gaming, everyone.